different types of slides and ladders. Let me show you some examples.
Thank you, Sophia, for those great videos. Weren't they fun, Mateo?
Yeah, thank you, Sophie, but the videos, I like them.
Me too. Today we talked about, or we saw those videos because today's board game is Chutes and Ladders. And Chutes is another word for slides. So slides and ladders. Now, I have all the instructions here. Do we need these instructions to read them to the kids, Mateo? No! We love this game because it's easy, right? It's easy.
Yeah.
And it's fun to play with all ages. So we're going to show you how to play. First thing is you pick a character. Mateo, who do you want to be? I'm going to be this girl. So we'll put these guys away. Once you have your character, it's time to spin. Youngest player always goes first. Mateo, spin. You got a... One. So move up on the board. One. And you landed on ladder. If you land on the ladder, you always go up. But if you land on the slide, you go down. So you keep taking turns. And then how do you win this game? Whoever gets to the top first is the winner. And that's how you play Chutes and
Ladder.
Oh, hi. Sorry, I was taking a little cat nap. And all I kept dreaming about were slides and ladders, slides and ladders. I wonder why. Oh, anyway, I was taking a nap because I wanted to see what I would dream. Because today's story is about a boy who would often be called the dreamer. His name was Joseph, though. Anyway, what does dreaming have to do with our game today, the Chutes and Ladders? Let's take a closer look at the board. See if we can figure it out. The fun part about Chutes and Ladders is using all the slides and ladders, right? When you get into a space that has a ladder, it helps you skip a lot of spaces. Like this big ladder across the board gets you from space 28 all the way up to space 84, which is really close to 100, where you win. But if you land on a slide, like this huge slide, you would come down from 87 all the way down to 24. That's not good. But this game is showing that ladders are good and slides are bad, right? And even in the pictures, if you take a look, see this little girl here, she's cleaning up and she goes up the ladder and gets a reward going to the movies. But this little girl up here is drawing on the walls and she has to slide down and her punishment is cleaning up. So it's saying if you're good, you get a reward. If you're bad, you get a punishment. But this game isn't always the same in real life. It's kind of backwards because when you see a slide, you say, oh geez, I don't want to get on that. Slides are bad. No, because the slides are fun and even adults like to ride on them. And ladders, not everybody likes to get on ladders because it usually means you have to do work, like cleaning gutters, fixing the roof, or even cleaning up cobwebs. They're not a lot of fun. So that's backwards from the game. And also, sometimes bad things happen to good people. Like for example, you could be playing with your friend and he breaks something, but he blames it on you. So you get punished. So even though you were being good, you get the something bad, the punishment. So sometimes bad things happen to good people. And sometimes good things happen to bad people. Life isn't always fair. And that's what today's story is about, because the dreamer, Joseph, had a lot of ups and downs like our game of Chutes and Ladders. And life wasn't always fair for him. But let me get up so I can tell you the rest of the story. Okay, now that I'm wide awake, let's talk about Joseph. Joseph was the 11th son out of 12. That was a lot of kids, and he was way at the bottom, one of the youngest. He was also his dad's favorite. What? You think the Bible doesn't talk about favorites? I thought you might say that, so I brought my Bible. Genesis 37:3 says, Israel, also known as Jacob, loved Joseph more than any of his other sons. That's because Joseph had been born to him when he was old. And then listen to this part. Israel made him a beautiful robe. Now, in the old days, they used to wear robes, and most of the time, they were all one color. But the robe that Israel made for Joseph was special because it had a lot of colors in it, and it was something special. His brothers saw that, and they knew that. And they said, my father has this favorite son, and that made them angry at him and jealous, and that's never a good combination. Another reason why the brothers hated Joseph was because he was a dreamer. Remember we talked that he was called the dreamer? And that didn't mean that he was always sleeping and wouldn't take care of his chores. And it didn't mean that he was daydreaming and always out of focus. It meant that he had special dreams and he would talk about them and say what he thought they meant. Now, I like to listen to people's dreams because they're usually funny. They don't make a lot of sense. They're kind of crazy and wacky, and they're funny. But the dreams that Joseph had were not funny to his brothers, and they made him angry. I imagine that Joseph would come out in the mornings and he would go around singing, I have a dream, I have a dream. I just want to see the floating lanterns gleam. Oh, hold on. That's a different story, right? But Joseph did talk about his dreams. And let me show you some of the dreams that he had and why his brothers would get mad. One of his dreams was that they were out in the fields and they were bundling wheat or grains. He said, my bundle would stand tall and in the middle, and your bundles, the brothers, stood around mine and bowed down to it. You see why his brothers didn't like it? He was pretty much saying that he was the boss of them, and he was the youngest. They didn't like that. Another dream, he said, the sun, the moon, and the stars bowed down to me. So even his dad didn't like this dream because the sun and the moon were mom and dad, and the stars were their brothers. And again, he was saying that he was the one in charge and they were all bowing down to him. So all these dreams made his brothers angry at him and jealous. They didn't like hearing his dreams. Now, Joseph probably shouldn't have bragged about his dreams like that and said them over and over and over. But I don't think he deserved what came next. You see, at this point in the story, or at this point in Joseph's game of Chutes and Ladders, he was pretty high because he was the favorite. So he had climbed up way high in his family and he was pretty close to the top, kind of winning. But he would soon come to his first slide and something that would make him fall from that high point. You see, one day his brothers were out taking care of the sheep and his father said, Joseph, can you please go and check in on your brothers, make sure they're all okay? So Joseph went out to go look for them, and they saw him at a distance. And when they saw him, they said, oh no, here comes Joseph, here comes the dreamer, he's going to keep talking about his dreams. Why did he have to come bother us? I wish we could just get rid of him. Then all of a sudden they decided, and they started talking about, how can we get rid of him? Our dad is not here, he wouldn't know. What if we kill him and tell our father, oh, a wild animal must have eaten him? One of his brothers heard and he wanted to protect him and he said, no, brothers, let's not kill him. Why don't we throw him into a well and he can die there? But he was planning to come back later and rescue him. So the brothers agreed, and when Joseph finally arrived, they took off his robe, his special colored robe, and they threw him into the well. And they sat down to eat. While they were eating, they saw that a caravan, a group of people were coming by. And they realized that they were traders. And they said, oh, we should sell him. And we can get money from him. And that way he doesn't die, but we'll still tell our father that. So they sold their brother Joseph for 20 pieces of silver. Once they had taken Joseph, they dipped his robe, his special colored robe, in goat's blood. And then they took it to his father and told him, Father, We found his robe. It looks like Joseph's. It's his colored robe, and we think a wild animal has eaten him." His father was very sad, and he cried, thinking that Joseph, the favorite son, had died. Now, back in Egypt, they had sold Joseph as a slave to Potiphar, and Potiphar was the commander of the armies of the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh was like the king of Egypt. While he was there, he worked very hard, and even though he didn't deserve to be a slave because he had done nothing really wrong, he worked hard, and he was a good kid, and his boss noticed that, so he promoted him, and he made him the head of the household. So we can see that even though his brothers had sold him and he went down a slide, now Potiphar had made him head of household. So he went up a little bit in his game of life. But then Potiphar's wife did something really wrong. She blamed Joseph for doing something wrong, even though Joseph had not. And Potiphar believed her. So they threw Joseph into jail, into prison, and he was there for a lot of years. But even in jail, Joseph did what was right. He again worked hard until the guards that were there saw that he was a hard worker and that he was good. And they put him in charge of other prisoners. While he was there, he met two men. One who had been the baker of Pharaoh's house, and another who had been the cupbearer of Pharaoh's house. That's a person who would taste and serve the wine. While they were there, he got to know them, and these two men had dreams while they were in the prison. Remember, before it was Joseph having the dreams, now it's these two men having dreams. And they told the dreams to Joseph, and Joseph told them what the dreams meant. And he told them, "One of you is going to, in 3 days, the king is going to come and they're going to kill you. And the other one is going to be taken back into the palace." When the 3 days passed, just as Joseph had said, the baker was put to death, and the cupbearer returned to serve in Pharaoh's house. As he was leaving the prison, Joseph said, please remember me when you get to Pharaoh's house, and tell him that I'm here because of something that I did not do. Tell him how they sold me as a slave. Tell them how they put me in here for doing something that I really didn't do. Speak for me." But the cupbearer, once he was out and free, forgot all about Joseph and never told Pharaoh about him. Now, you can say, this poor guy has been down so many slides in his life. There have been very few ladders that he has gone up. Does God not care about him? Does God not see that it is not fair? But God had him just where he needed him to be. Because a couple of years later, the guards came and got Joseph and said, "Hey, Joseph, you need to come to Pharaoh." Because the Pharaoh had had a weird dream. And the cupbearer finally remembered, oh, there's a guy in prison and he interprets dreams. So they brought him to interpret his dream. Once the Pharaoh explained his dream to him, Joseph interpreted it and told him what to do. So he was in the right place at the right time. So God had not forgotten him. Now, if you keep reading the story of Joseph in your Bible, you'll see that he became the second in command. So he went up a huge ladder in Egypt. So after the Pharaoh, who was like the king, the next one was Joseph. So he was back at the top winning the game, right? And you'll see that if you keep reading the story, you'll see that he was second in command and he saved Egypt from starving to death, which was one of the dreams that the Pharaoh had had. You can also see how he meets his brothers again. Do you think that he forgave them? Do they know what he's become? You got to read to find out. It's a good story. But I want to talk to you now about how sometimes life is not fair. Sometimes you do something that's good and other people think you did something bad and you get blamed for it, right? And it's not fair. And you think, well, does God not see what's happening? But I want to give you the good news that God does see. So why do bad things happen? Remember that when God made the world, he made it perfect. But when sin came into it, it destroyed that perfect world. And because of sin, bad things happen, even to good people. That's why Jesus came to die for us on the cross, to show us that he loves us and to save us from ever sliding too far down, because we can always be saved by his love. So whenever you're going through something that has you feeling down, remember that God is there with you, and He will get you through it so that one day you can also climb back up to the top. See you next week.